All right, hey guys, it's Raul Espinoza with the Iowa Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us. Today, my next guest is Jason Sturm, president of the Edge Pro here in Ankeny, Iowa. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So I want to go ahead and get started real quick, just because it's so interesting about the Edge Pro. For the listeners who don't know who you are and what sharpening really is, you do so much more than just sharpening. So tell us a little bit about the story of the Edge Pro and how it got started. Was it 25 plus years ago, right?
Yeah. My father actually got his original training in 1989, all the way back there, and officially opened the business in 1990. So we're coming up on our 30-year anniversary.
Wow.
Ultimately,
I was born in 1990, so that kind of rings a bell for me. Wow.
There's a time frame for you.
30 years.
And I was just a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got gray hair now. But his initial influx into this was to sharpen scissors for beauticians.
Okay. So he started in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was ultimately a sales rep, had never really done any mechanical type work. So becoming a technician and learning that trade was something new for him.
Okay.
And went into both fairly quickly, both sales of scissors and support products along with the sharpening.
Okay.
Really looking first at the beauticians, and quickly learned that you only get to have a certain market share that like your service and the things you do. And so that started to expand into the natural next step is barbershops.
Of course, which is huge now.
It is. It was interesting. 30 years ago, the barbering industry was declining. It was really imploding.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of counties in the state of Iowa that didn't have a barbershop left in them.
Wow.
So a little different than today, as we see that industry still expanding and growing.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that he went toward was in the pet grooming and veterinary world. And that kind of really gives a shroud of what our customer base looks like today even.
Okay.
Those 4 different industries.
We also do like the horses and sheep and that kind of stuff too, right?
Yeah, we've got the private owners of pets and whatnot.
Okay.
And into the agriculture and the showing industry, the auctioning of animals, all those kind of things. But anywhere that they're needing to work with the furs and hair. And we even have kind of an offshoot with people that do custom carpet kind of work, where they're tapering edges of carpet. They'll use a clipper. So
wow, I didn't know that.
And they're really hard on those blades. That kind of fiber really chews them up. But so there's a little bit of a niche within sharpening that we cover, and that is the scissors, the clipper blades. And then for us, we also work heavily with the clippers themselves, that motor and the service and repair.
Okay. So you think from, when you first started in 1990, now that's like your main focus right now, just because it's so busy, is the clipper industry?
It is its own kind of genre within sharpening, because there's another side that would be what we call industrial sharpening.
Sure.
Working with carbides and saw blades and even yard tools, chainsaw chain and lawnmower blades, which again, being we're open to the public with our store,
of course,
we do sharpen some of those chains and we'll do lawnmower.
I think I've seen some lawnmower blades in there. What's the most interesting thing you've ever sharpened?
One thing I guess that's kind of interesting, we sharpen, they're called bag slitters for seed production companies. They're a 20-inch diameter razor blade.
Wow.
And so they come in and we put a fresh edge on them so that they will cut the bags without having debris fall into the seed corn as they open them. And so that's kind of an odd one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I did have an opportunity for some different swords and things like that have come in the door. And we're crazy enough to say, sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do with that blunt edge.
Yeah. That is really cool.
Probably the most honoring thing I've ever done were for soldiers that are being deployed and bringing in their K-bars. And different things that they're going to have in service, and having that honor to be able to prepare that for them for service. And
that is really cool.
A lot of times we've done that just on our own and offered it back to them and thank them for what they're doing for us as a country.
So you're a big, your business is big on family values and, keeping the customer happy as well.
Yeah. Part of our core value is the customer experience.
Okay.
What things can we do that makes us relevant for you as that customer, that when you walk out, that, you were taken care of, that we partnered with you and your need.
Of course.
And that we didn't drop the ball in those areas.
Yeah. That's really interesting to me, is because you're such a an interesting niche that's not around everywhere. Like, I don't know where the nearest sharpening business is from your vicinity here in central Iowa, but if they have a bad experience with you, they kind of have no choice at that point. But that usually rarely ever happens, right? So,
Sure.
you know,
Well, we try to follow up, even when, we're human. We can make an error, and we hope people don't judge us beyond the idea that, something mechanical didn't come out the way we needed. And,
of course,
we're always going to stand behind the work that we do. And that gives us an opportunity to improve even, all the time. If it's when a customer is offended by something and then they just turn the another direction, that really today in our, politically correct world, that we quote unquote can't say or do things without being offensive.
Of course.
But we really need that. We need that feedback so that we can grow and do better. And again, we want to make sure that then the customer experience, even in the idea of a controversy, call it, that we do right. And, it's again, whether you want to call it Christian values that we hold dear. Again, we want to take care of people as much as we do a tool.
Yeah.
And, very important to us.
Cool. So would you say your dad was Gordon, right?
Yeah.
Was the entrepreneur in the family, or did his dad also was he in business as well?
Well, of course,
just kind of is genetic, for you in
a little
your blood?
bit. I don't hear the word entrepreneur associated to farmers very much, but
that's what they
realistically,
are,
they really are. And they've had to wear those hats their entire life, not just to farm and crop grow or animal growing and taking care of and harvesting, but the idea of the books and the cash flow and different support products that are going to have to come in and go out, and the weather and the things we can't control.
Of course.
All those different things had to happen with the farmers. And so that was both my mom and dad sides of the families were original farming families.
Okay.
And dad really ran away from the farm as quick as he could because he saw the craziness and the risks and the things involved in farming, and came to the big city, call it, out of southwest Iowa and the Bedford area and Gravity, big town of Gravity.
Is that where the business started, you would say? Was it in your house or?
So Dad started the business out of the house.
Okay.
We actually, one of my uncles was retiring from IBM, took an early retirement.
That was a good company. I mean, still a good company to work for, but that's interesting.
He wrote manuals to tell people how to work with their computers back in the 1970s, call it.
Wow. That's cool.
So he was retiring, and he had found the sharpening world and this whole new influx of a new design of scissor that was happening in the salon world, and was a little more complicated than the hardware store sharpening that we could think of with industrial scissors and whatnot, and fabric shears. And then taught that trade on to my father, who was a sales rep in the state of Iowa with very minimal population.
Okay.
And can be a rough go. And through the different economic changes of the 60s and 70s and even into the 1980s, he was always looking for that next thing to do, and kept moving from trade to trade and company to company. And so this one he embraced, and again was learning how to do it better. Started out at the house with route service, then going door to door to the salons. And
so he would knock on doors at first?
Yes, going in, cold calling, learning what their needs were, how to service them. He didn't even really know how to sharpen yet. And so that was the scary part.
He just got started.
You bet.
That's good.
And continued his education. And I think that's something that we really foundationally want to encourage, is that we're always, no matter the trade, but especially when you're a skilled trade, you're always going to be working to improve those skills.
So you would consider sharpening a specialized skill at your level?
Is. There's a craft to it itself. Here in the United States, we don't embrace the whole concept of becoming a journeyman in a trade and going through an apprenticeship. We see that more in Europe and things still. But it is something that really, even when we do training and we do help people learn this craft, when they come to us and train, that's not the end. That's just a beginning.
Sort of take them under your arm and go through their journey.
When I've done this now 23 years myself, I'm still learning, right? And there's areas that I know I could do better, more efficient, get a final product that is more lucrative for my customer. Yeah. And so we're always trying to find that, and then we share that on to others.
Yeah, I noticed that about you. You don't just even if something's working at its efficiency, like perfectly, you don't settle. You want to go see, okay, well, then how can we make this better now?
You bet.
And I think that's why you've lasted so long. And it's really interesting to see how you guys work.
Well, it's you mentioned earlier that question if my dad was kind of that entrepreneur. And I would say that what Dad was doing was trying to make sure he stabilized his income and found a craft that he could work in and a job that he could kind of control. But ultimately, he was looking for a job and a paycheck.
Of course.
And so he did that, and he did it well. When I first started to work with him, people didn't even know the name of his business.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was called the Edge Professional, all spelled out.
Okay.
And I'm a little lazy, so when I came in, I shortened it to Pro because that's a lot of letters to type out every time.
Yeah.
Took up more card stock and everything, right?
Definitely.
But Dad's real goal and desire was to have this job, and that he was providing for his family and at home. I had a little different vision. I'm also not so much loving the idea of the cold calling and going in trying to sell you're trying to sell your
service. It's a rare breed when you like that.
Yeah, and Dad loved it. He was a people person, an extrovert, and was fun and always had the next new joke. And if you were to talk to his old customers and whatnot, and since he's retired, that's their first thing is he still telling jokes, and but he won their hearts first, and he became grandpa in a lot of ways.
Built that relationship.
Yeah, and it's funny because now I'm just 3 years younger than when he started this company.
Wow.
So at 50, he was just 53 when he started.
That's a good example of, it's never too late to start.
That's true.
Some people I've talked to, they're like, I'm too old to learn all this stuff, and they're in their 40s or 30s, and I'm like, no, from everyone I've met, you need to just start regardless of what, with technology and health now where it is, people live longer. So it's like, you just need to not worry so much about your age at that point.
You bet.
That's cool that he started so late.
Well, and if you think about the definition around entrepreneur, the concept, we miss the boat a lot of times. We just see it as, I think I could do my job really well on my own.
Yeah.
And be my own boss. But that's really not an entrepreneurial spirit.
No.
That's just, I want to have control over my work I'm doing, and I'm a skilled craftsman. And so we start a business around my craft and my skill. Problem is that there's an awful lot that goes into actually making that into a thriving business.
Of course.
Beyond.
You got to wear all the hats.
The craft. That's right. You got to have the hats. We hear that joke all the time when we're starting a business. Which hat are you wearing now?
Yeah.
Well, this half hour, I'm wearing this one.
Yes.
And the problem is there's some very important hats, and if we never get them out of the pile, it stays
early
in the
on.
corner. Yeah, especially like accounting and the taxes and different things. Those can actually come up and surprise us later. And I've run into some of those guys that this was the direction, or ladies that they kind of forgot that part.
Of course.
And so, an entrepreneur does see an opportunity, sees a gap in the industry or a skill set that isn't being met, a need that a customer has out there, a potential customer, and you start getting creative around how you could meet that need, how we could fill that niche, as you mentioned for us, and then building a business around that. But the other side is an entrepreneur knows their strengths and weaknesses.
Of course.
They know the things that they know, and they know to ask about the things they don't. And then they bring in those skilled people, kind of like our business brought you in as a great example. Social media was something that we saw as just the newest, most amazing communication chain that our current generations are using, and we weren't involved. And we kept saying, well, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. You do it. No, you do it. I'm going to do it this week. No, I'm going to do it next week. And
you start to fall behind.
6 months go by and we hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
And so we brought in a skilled person that can focus on that and bring us up to speed and, hopefully do it right. We'd set up different social media things even, and they weren't really set up the way they were supposed to be to really work right even for us.
Yeah.
And so that's been a great thing. We even recently hired a business consultant, a business coach, to come in. Even after nearly 30 years of doing things we're doing, I saw weaknesses in our structure. Things around lean, things around how we function, our processes, even the job descriptions and roles for the people inside our shop.
Well, that reminds me of Henry Ford when he struggled with numbers.
Oh yeah.
And so he brought in, he didn't care about that. He didn't want to learn that whole side. He brought in people and used their expertise to fill in those gaps. That's kind of what you're talking about.
Definitely. God's gifted us all in our own areas and our own wisdoms and our own intelligence. And there's those that really grapple a hold of numbers.
Yeah.
I go more toward the technician side, and then the people. I love to teach. I love to share. I love to learn. And so that's where, I really do my best. But in order to get work done every day, I have to do the skilled crafts piece and sharpen tools.
Yeah.
Because that's the business.
Because you're the president, but you're still back there working on blades and, looking at errors, manufacturing errors and all that, aren't you?
You bet.
You're still involved in that business.
And we're working hard. One of my pieces to the coaching that we're under right now, and a great skilled individual that's helping us do that,
Cool.
and pro business coaches. And what they're showing us is that there's actually a definition behind president. I had to look that up on Google and read on about it. And, ultimately, my job is to build our company, not work in it. So I'm to work on it. And so we sat down, did a little project the other day, and kind of determined that I spend about 15% of my time, not minutes, 15% of my time a week building our business and working on it.
You think that should be higher?
So we need to improve that and flip that chart so that 15% is what's left of me working in it every day.
Of course.
And the rest is building and working on it.
Yep.
And so as we make that shift, we can now do better in the areas that we're struggling.
Yeah.
Or,
well, you as the leader, as the head, you kind of need to step back sometimes. And wow, I didn't realize we spend this much time on this. And well, I wanted to touch the topic of your sharpening machines.
Sure.
Because that's probably something, I don't know when those came into play, but you mentioned you weren't, entrepreneurs look for those problems and things that they want to fix. And so in the sharpening industry, the machine is very important. How did you come across your Big Red machine? And is it something that you guys manufacture and makes it that much more, attractive for others who want to learn the business because you have that? So you not only sharpen, you also help with the machine, right?
Yeah. So we started years ago, fostered a relationship with another company called Nebraska Blades. Before that, an individual, his name was Tippy Tipton. I believe he was in Pennsylvania. Designed this machine around sharpening clipper blades, mimicking what's happening in the factories on manufacturing, but in a more portable, something that the aftermarket world could use to tune back up the blades that have been dulled in the end user shops. We bought one of those back in around 1996.
Wow. So 6 years in,
one of the first 10 machines purchased, we owned one.
Wow.
And then later, the Schissel family out of Nebraska bought the company.
Okay.
And then again, through different experiences and these training events that we were at, and we already owned their equipment. So we would see Bob and Linda and their kids as they helped them in their business and in their small entrepreneurial business and sharpeners. And eventually, instead of us being just there, seeing them and working around them, I was one of the instructors, just like Bob was.
Okay.
I was brought in as the expert in the clipper repair world. And so we're teaching in these bigger environments in our industry around how to repair clippers.
Sure.
And he was the guy there as the expert on the blade sharpening.
Okay.
And pretty soon we figured out that he knew a little bit about repair and I knew a little bit about sharpening, and we would co-teach.
Okay.
And as they were getting older and different things going on in their world and the busyness of life in a small business, we started helping them with their customer service questions and answers. And eventually we were marketing their equipment and selling for them. And they didn't have to travel to the shows that we were at also. And then we were teaching both repair and sharpening.
Nice.
Now they came to me with a very honoring opportunity at one stage, again, about 2012, 2013, just saying that, their family didn't necessarily want to continue the business as they were going to retire.
Okay.
Would we be interested in buying the business and continuing in a path that they felt like we had the same values and things, ethics around doing business and continue what they'd already started. And so through some different events, our kind of 5-year plan became a 1-year plan, and the transition happened. So we bought their company. Again, they had a wonderful fabricating business that they worked with in central Nebraska.
Okay.
And so we left that there for the meantime, as again, that company is getting closer to where they're going to sell and retire. So we're working on plans to move even the manufacturing side fully to Iowa and have it closer to home as we try to expand our product line and improve as we go forward the different tools we have. So yeah, we're in the manufacturing side. We're in that, of course, bolstered our training aspect.
Well, sure.
As a manufacturer, we also need to have people that know how to properly use the equipment. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working in that now for several years.
Awesome. So it's a big part of the Edge Pro now.
It really is. Yeah, it's a piece of our mixture that diversifies us. We found different things over time. Again, as an entrepreneur, we want our businesses to really function and flow well. And we noticed that there were a lot of gaps in the year where the industries that we serviced would slow down. And we saw that with the salon world. Then we went into the barbering and then grooming and veterinary, all this. And everybody had a season where there seemed to be holes in our year. And we're standing there going, okay, how do we find another customer that needs our service? And so, as we expanded ideas, we were just trying to really make our income more stabilized and our growth more stabilized. And that's just kind of how we've gotten to that point. We worked, again, with my ideas compared to my father a little bit. I saw an opportunity with the factories. And to...
Factories for which one?
For the clippers.
Clipper parts, okay.
Yeah, and so we wanted to be able to offer hopefully at least better opportunities for servicing and taking care of those tools. We were able to get credentialed by a couple different factories as they have different service programs. Most of those are closed programs that they really weren't expanding in, but the timing and, if you really went into the nitty gritty of our story, it's pretty awesome how God worked and the timing where we were able to have, like Andus as a company, they really weren't adding service.
Global business there.
It is big business, still family owned. They weren't adding service centers and definitely not warranty centers.
Okay.
I had a new national sales manager that their rep wanted to meet me because of how we express their product line, how we talk about maintenance, repair, and service. And we thought it'd be kind of cool for him to see this little outfit out of Iowa that works out of their basement and how we talk about their product line. And through that, I asked that simple question. Well, how do we become a warranty service center for the factory? And he was prepared. This guy, great guy, really got to know him over years. But he said, well, just these 10 things, and rattled off a whole list of different things, such as like you have to have a brick and mortar building location and different things like that, which of course we're out of our basement. And though that was brick and mortar, it was not a commercial location, right? And so he gave us this list. And the cool part was I'd already signed a lease on our commercial building.
Yeah.
He did not know
where you
that.
are now, right?
Yeah, up here in the edge of Uptown.
Very cool.
He did not know that we were doing that, right? And so 2 weeks later, I called him and I said, well, I've checked off the list. We have everything handled.
Probably threw him off.
Except for one. And the interesting one there is when you're coming that close of a relationship to a factory, they have to trust you. And so there's a relationship that has to be built. And I wasn't sure how we do that one. And it was funny because Gary Nilo was a guy and he says, you weren't supposed to actually check off the list.
Wow.
Because we're not adding service centers. I just did this to kind of persuade you to stop, right? But again, in God's timing, they were needing some fill-in at a couple horse shows nationally where they'd already signed contracts and the person that was going to do that couldn't. So we were able to go and start building that relationship. And through that, we even had more horse shows that came in on a bigger scale around the country. Cool. And we got to work with people in their customer service department and managers and whatnot for several days at a time and built a relationship. And eventually they actually came to us and offered us those credentials, which again was fun to do. And we eventually got to do that with other factories. We're really excited about some new opportunities that are going to be happening in the next couple of months that we'll be able to announce soon. And, we'll see where that all takes us. Awesome. Through that, we became a supplier. And
so now would you say nationally you're one of the biggest suppliers of clipper parts? And
yeah, I think we're recognized as one of the largest
cool.
in that industry. We have competitors that we communicate with and people we really appreciate what they're doing as well. That do a very similar job to what we do. We hope that the way we take care of our customers speaks volumes for why we're doing this and how.
Yeah.
And, it's a fun deal to be involved in.
Well, I would say from what you're telling me, you have a good eye seeing opportunity to grow your business.
Yes.
How would you advise someone who's trying to get started and their business has been in for 2-3 years and they're looking to grow? How did you see those opportunities? Like, I know people think, man, he's just lucky, is in the right place at the right time. But you think just working hard on your passion, eventually you'll get to see those opportunities? Or how did you see those, like to become a supplier and then to get the machine and all this as far as what you started out to be?
Yeah, I think there is some truth to the idea that timing is very important.
Sure.
There's ways we have to look at our business, what our strengths are, again, see what opportunities already exist around us. We have to even understand and know our customer. We have to understand and know our competition.
Of course.
And then we start looking at, I think this was a fairly new thing, individual I've gotten to know out of England, actually, used to work in the risk department in a major corporation.
Okay.
And so we have to even look at, what are the things around us that could stop our growth or expand our growth. Then we see, how do we fill that niche, or how do we get involved with a piece of the market share? We know we're never going to take all the market share in a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, no, I mean,
and that's okay, but where is our piece of it that we can fit well? Maybe we are that natural extrovert that likes to go out and cold call.
Mm-hmm.
And I've met a few of them. It's not me. Might be surprising to some of those that know me that, as much as an extrovert as I might be, that one's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And so for me, I looked at is where were the customers already at that they could walk up to my environment. And that's where the trade shows came in. But it had its own lifestyle. And our kids know it well because they grew up in it, traveling and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, take each opportunity and try to measure it against who you are, what you are about, and does it really fit your strengths? And is there a way for you to really embrace it totally? If it's something that really doesn't match, especially if it's in your ethics, if there's something about it that just will take away from
like your gut feeling
who you are. Yeah. Trust it,
Very interesting.
and believe it. Don't try to force those things to happen.
So is that something you would, if you had one piece of advice to give to Gen Z and millennials who, see all this stuff on social media that I want to be my own boss, be an entrepreneur. Is that sort of the advice you'd give them, or like, what would you tell them? What's one piece of advice you'd give?
I always, any of the people that I've trained and taught or worked with them as they're starting their businesses, and we've done that with many people around the country, is that we do have to trust who we are. If it's not a passion, probably don't want to follow it. If it's something that you think you might want to do someday, get the knowledge and work around it to see if it really does fit who you are.
Yeah. So be yourself.
Yeah. If you're putting the sock on your hand and your glove on your foot, it's probably never going to feel right.
Sure.
And it's not going to be something that you're going to really grow well with. That's not to say that a good opportunity isn't something to work on and see if there's ways that you can expand even your own personality or who you are.
100%.
But at the same time, if it's just totally contrary to what and who you are, it's probably never going to really flow well. And to move to the next idea, the next opportunity. Some of us really are followers too. If you're not ready to lead, then don't put yourself in a leadership position. Learn how to lead first. And then from there, you can use those skills again to, everybody's advantage.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
Appreciate having you.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.